Welcome to Straight Talk with Carly Alyssa Thorne. And I have with me today Kelly Orchard. And I'm really happy because I am re-interviewing her, and we're going to be discussing some tools for success to empower and inspire others for the new year. So welcome, Kelly.
I'm really glad to be here, Carly. Thanks for inviting me back.
I was very excited to have you back because it is the new year, and you have some really inspirational things to talk about. So the thing I would love to start with is talk about your book, Heart Lessons, and for you to give the viewers some ahas as to why you wrote the book and where that's led you from there till now.
Well, how much time do you have?
Well, we're going to do the pithy version of that part, because we really want to get to those nuggets for the tools.
Right. Well, I'll give you the very short version of it. My book, Heart Lessons, was published last year. In fact, I'm ready to create this. I'm actually working on the second edition because I'm just making a couple little minor tweaks to it. But it came, Heart Lessons was inspired out of a heart crisis that I experienced quite a number of years ago now, and it was a long journey toward recovery. And during that time, I was keeping a journal, and I was in the throes of, I had heart failure, I was self-employed, I was raising 3 teenagers, and suddenly I'm in this medical crisis. And they say when all things are going badly, at least you have your health. Well, I didn't have my health, and all things were going badly, and it was a major crisis for me. And so what occurred was, during the course of this time, I was keeping my journal, and then I was realizing that when you get a second chance, when I started feeling better, when you get a second chance at life, do you stay the course that you were on and try to get back on track, or do you create a whole new life for yourself? Well, one of the things that I wanted to do was to be able to help others who were going through some sort of a life change, a life transition, a life crisis, or just were not exactly happy with the path that they had been on. So I went back to grad school, and I got my master's degree in psychology and started working towards becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist. And during the time during grad school, I realized, you have to do a lot of self-reflection when you're in a psychology program. And, in order to learn how to be a therapist, you sort of have to do a little psychoanalysis on yourself as well. You have to do the work. So while I was doing the work, I was realizing just how many lessons I had learned while I was in the midst of this crisis. And so that sort of spurred on me writing this book, Heart Lessons, which shares lessons in surrender, lessons in grief, lessons in patience, lessons in listening, and then lessons in discipline. And so my book shares the lessons that I learned through the stories unfolding through my journal. It's a prescriptive memoir, while also giving 3 Ds, learning how to detect, define, and determine to make a change in your life for the better. And that's pretty much where Heart Lessons came from. And so, the book is sold on Amazon. I share it when I go out to speaking engagements, and occasionally I'll share it with clients who are in need of something, something inspirational and helpful, and it's become a tool. And I'm currently working on the second one, which is a follow-up to the Heart Lessons, which is Heart Lessons Living Life in 3D. And so it's more of the 3 Ds, but it'll be more about lessons in love, lessons in compassion, lessons in gifts, lessons in humility, and lessons in identity. So on and so forth. It's somewhat the same, but it's kind of here's what happened after I learned these lessons and I started to create a new life for myself. Now this is what's been going on. So as a follow-up, I'm currently working on Heart Lessons Living Life in 3D. And so that's where that came from.
I actually like the new title. I like the 3D. I really do. I think it's kind of grabs you.
Well, thank you. It was inspired by one of my readers. She said, I really like that, and that's what you should call your next book, Living Life in 3D. And I was like, that's perfect. So I'm actually, when I write the dedication, I'm going to include her in that for helping me name the title of the book. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So now you and I are going to dive into some tools for others to not only learn about how to inspire themselves, but how do we help inspire others? Because ultimately, inspiring others, from my personal view, is what leads to success.
Yes, I love that. Yes, my favorite topic. Yeah.
So you and I are talking a little bit before, since it is a new year, the first thing you and I are going to put out there is why we should choose different words than resolutions. So what is your take on resolutions?
Well, I tell this all the time. It's like resolution, just the simply making a resolution is not enough. So saying I'm going to do this is not enough. You need to take action. So I don't really like the word New Year's resolution, because that means that this whole time that before this new year you haven't been doing anything, or you're not willing to do anything. And so it's like, New Year, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Like, you need a date on the calendar to make a change in your life. So New Year's resolutions just don't work unless you do the work. Like we were talking, you so pointedly pointed out that when you say resolution, it has this negative connotation to it. When you say we're going to set some goals, it's like a scary thing. But when we talk about the outcome, or we're going to achieve success by doing this, and we break it down into small bite-sized pieces that somebody can really, absorb and take in and say, oh, I can do this today. I had done a blog that said, it's like if you just make a 1% improvement today from yesterday, just think about how much change you will have made if you do that every day for 365 days. You'll have 365 plus the exponential number improvement from where you started.
Exactly. So and we're going to get into your apple a day, which I love your rebranding. I love the fact that you're using an apple a day, because to me that ties into daily resolutions. It's a daily thing to choose to want to be better. It is a daily effort and choice to choose to want to take care of your mind, body, business, and spirit. Because to me, they're all interconnected, and it's a choice to actually take the actionable steps on a daily basis to make your life better in some shape or form. Not that not that we need to. I know people say we're coming from a place of brokenness. I'm not coming from that space. What I'm saying better is we all need to always look towards. We don't know everything. So when I say better, I'm just saying we're being open and aware to learning new things.
Well, I've developed a philosophy, and here's my philosophy, Carly. The purpose in life is to grow. Now, growth is like, when you think about it, it's like, okay, so a cell, what is the purpose of a cell? The purpose is to grow. When you plant a seed, what is the purpose of that seed? The seed is supposed to grow. When you think about it, it's like we want our businesses to grow. We want our communities to grow. We want our churches to grow. Whatever it is in our life, we want it to grow. We want our relationships to grow. So our purpose then is to grow. So I promote perpetual personal and professional growth. It doesn't say that, like you said, we're not broken. We weren't not doing a good job already, but why wouldn't we want to continue to grow? Because that's what we were here for. I recently wrote a blog or an article that, when you haven't seen somebody for a really long time, when you're a little kid, and they come to you and they look at you and they go, oh my goodness, look how much you've grown, and they're so proud of you for growing. And we measure everything by growth. We measure our plants and how big they grow. We measure our children and how tall they grow. We measure our bank accounts on how well they grow. So everything is all about growth. So when we talk about tools for success, coming back to that, well, our purpose is to grow. So we need to constantly, perpetually promote our growth. And that means learning, that means practicing new tools or learning new tools. And just like you said, not making resolutions, but just creating new habits that we are going to adopt and use on a regular basis, however small they are. It's all about the growth. Nothing grows at the same pace.
That's a really valuable thing that you just said. Nothing grows at the same pace. We get so caught up in other people's growth or expansion that we're not good enough because we see friends, maybe they've published their book already and you haven't. Or maybe they've gotten a new promotion and you're still wherever you are. Or we're on the yoga mat and people are looking at the other person doing their yoga. It's like, no, and this is one of the teachers that always say, do your yoga on your own mat. Because it's your exercise with yourself. Right? Mm-hmm. Don't focus on all the other mats around you, how better they may be balanced in your head. Oh my God, they're so much better than I am because they're balanced in one leg and I'm almost wobbling and falling over, or whatever the negative self-talk that you have going on in your head. We need to start focusing on ourselves and worrying about ourselves. The rest will naturally happen.
Mm-hmm.
Take yourself out. And that's why you so said it earlier, too, about those two words. It's like when you go in and you study, and then you sit down for the test and your mind goes blank.
Yeah.
You know you have that test. It's the same thing when someone says, you have to write these goals down. You have to do this resolution. Unconsciously, we take ourselves out because this fear comes in that we can't do it or we're not good enough.
Yeah.
So using softer words like outcomes. And outcomes, like you said, are growth. It's the growth. And I love that you're using those words now, you know, tying in the apple a day with your last name, orchard. Now I totally stumbled when I just said that. But, you know, I'm talking about the orchard of apples, the apple a day, and the growth principles, because everything grows, everything evolves, everything moves.
Yeah. Well, I'm right now. I'm living in a world of metaphors, Carly. As I, you know, I'm developing a program called, you know, Seasons of Growth: Tools for Success, and it's basically the seasons of life, seasons of growth. So I utilize spring, summer, fall, and winter in the lectures and in all of the worksheets. And it'll end up being a booklet where you'll get about 30 pages of like handouts, basically, that you can print up or you can purchase that are the tools, and those are the tools. And so each season has 6 tools, but the seasons are represented by gardening tools. So I'm using a lot of metaphors to really drive the point home, is what the purpose is, to drive the point home. So it's like, so in the springtime, the spring season, and you could be in all seasons at the same time. That's just the thing. It's like we often think of the season of someone's life. It's like the springtime might be their youth and their childhood. The summer is their young adulthood, and the fall is, you know, in their middle age, and then you have the winter of your life. Okay, that's beautiful. Okay, I like that. But in seasons of growth, you could be in all of these seasons simultaneously. And I use an illustration of like a rose bush that has new buds coming up, and it's got the perfectly blooming buds that are roses that are on the bush, and then it's got the ones that are dying off that need to be pruned back. And so this rose bush, it's still growing and it's still living a full life, but it's just got little bits and pieces of seasonal things going on it all at the same time. Well, that could be your life. So in spring, we take a shovel, you know, so that's one of the tools I have, and we're cultivating and we're digging up the automatic thoughts, the limiting beliefs that hold us back, you know, the things that we think of that affect us in a negative way. And so I talk about that, and I have some exercises that we work on with that. So, you know, for example, you know, like you said, it's like you're sitting there looking around the room in your yoga class, and there's other people that are much further along than you, or they're more flexible, or their physique is stronger, and you're wondering, what's wrong with me? Well, that's what holds people back, is by saying, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. You're just at a different pace right now. You're just in a different season. You know, and then we work on the summer, which is I have that represented by a hoe, you know, where you're weeding things out. So now we're going to weed out some of the plants that, you know, they're the seeds that we've planted, and we're going to find out what's working and how we're going to you know, water it and watch it grow and take the time to, you know, to live in that for a little while. And then we move on. And so some of those are like, you know, so for example, I'll use my own career as an example here. It's like I was planting seeds with a completely other brand, and I'm not going to name it only because I don't want to confuse the audience, but we're finding that where was I going to take that 5 years from now? You know, if I'm talking about this particular topic and it's my entire brand is focused on that topic alone, 3, 4 years from now, I'm going to be bored with it. What am I going to do then? So I had to, even though I was planting a lot of seeds and I was finding success in those seeds, I had to kind of pull back and say, okay, I can make some changes here, and I can pluck out what's working, and then I can just get rid of what's not working. And that's what I mean by weeding out what's not working in your life. And that could be in your relationships, it could be in your diet program, you know, it's in your what you're eating, whatever it is that you're going through. And then we move on to the fall. The fall is represented by a rake. So the tools for success with the rake is you're You know, the leaves are starting to fall off the tree. Now you're gonna, or the fruit, and you're gonna harvest it. You're going to level off the playing field. We're gonna celebrate our hard work. We're going to count our blessings, and I have some of the tools of the benefits of gratitude, where we're going to actually do an exercise to be showing gratitude for the things that we have gone through or the things we're experiencing. We're doing a little practice of mindfulness to be mindful of where we are right now, and that's one of the other tools that are in the program. And then in the winter, we get to the winter season. Well, that's where we're going to start pruning back. So it's represented by pruning shears. And we're going to prune back old behavior patterns. We're going to prune back some of the things that weren't working. We're going to talk a lot about, you know, the thoughts and even like, okay, now's maybe a good time for you to clear the clutter in your office and in your home, to get rid of books that you don't read, you know, files you don't need, papers that are stacking up. You know, it means the mental and emotional clutter, but also the physical clutter that we're going to start pruning back. And these are some of the things that to create a roadmap. You know, you say goals. It's like, well, how about we have a roadmap? You know, because if you're going to go on a trip, you say, I'm in California and I want to get to New York City. Well, that's a really huge goal. You know, I don't know how I'm going to get to New York City. All right, well, let's create a roadmap. Do you want to fly? Do you want to drive? Do you want to go horse and buggy? You know, how do you want to get to New York City from California? Well, I'm going to drive. Okay, well, which route do we want to take? And it's a matter of, like you said, just kind of strategizing and taking small steps. And that's really where the tools for success are, is knowing what tools you need, and then using those tools and learning how to use those tools, and then continually practicing them.
Okay, so you said a wonderful roadmap in a mouthful. So I want to go back a little bit, because it was, you know, I wanted to just break it up a little bit. So some of the things, one thing you brought up that was really important was the roadmap, how to get from point A to point Z. And to me, that's that journey. And instead of focusing on one thing here, like you said, I want to tie back to one thing you brought up. We're not going to mention the old brand, because we don't want to confuse people. However, what I do want to say about that, which is so important, you're looking towards the future. Too many people are so monofocused. They're not looking. A quote that I saw a while ago was, dream, be in the now, dream for the future. You have to think about what your future, you want it to look like, and then take the actionable steps, the journey, right, to get there.
Yeah.
However, you're so focused on one point, like you were looking at your old brand, right?
Right.
You knew you were going to run out of things to do. So
right.
You rethought, and also you didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You actually say, okay, and you didn't reinvent the wheel. You took what was working, right? That's a huge piece. Some people go, oh, that's not working, throw everything away. It's like, no, take what's really working, and be honest with yourself. What is bringing you towards the journey where you want to go, and what is keeping you away from getting there? So that's a lot of that, what you're talking about, the pruning and the weeding and, you know, all these things, right? So I think that was a huge one. So that one I want you to bring back. Okay, so we're looking on a journey, going towards some place, and looking towards your future. Doesn't mean you're not working in the now. You have to live in the now, because if you can't be in the now, you can't plant the seeds in the now to create
Yeah. Well, and what I gave you a little bit of an overview, and so now we'll go back. Okay, so let's go back to, say, the spring part, and you're talking about creating the roadmap. And the way that I'm designing, how I design the program is you can start in any of the seasons, because it's like, here's where you've been, here's where you are, here's where you're going, and here's what you want to see. But visualization is one of the tools, and that's a really important one, and you and I both know that. Like you said, it's like, where do you want to go? What do you want your world to look like? I had a conversation with a client the other night and asked him, what do you see for yourself? What do you want for your life? And once you can see it, then you need to close your eyes. And you really need to visualize your life as if you were already there. So can you smell it? Can you taste it? Can you see it? Can you hear it? Can you feel it? in your hands. And what is it? You know, for some people it's, you know, I want to be married and have a dozen children. Okay, can you smell the dozen children? What kind of home are you going to live in? You know, what kind of job will your spouse have, or will you have, to be able to afford a dozen children? Or somebody may say that they want to be an author. Okay, picture yourself as the author. You have published your first book. You are, you know, are you out on tour? Are you signing, you know, doing book signings? Are you speaking about the contents that are in your book? I know that's how it worked for me. When I wanted to write my book, I had to kind of picture myself, you know, being interviewed about my book. And here I am. Look at, here I am. My book was published a year ago. And here I am. I've been doing a little bit, you know, little interviews here and there for a year. And I'm here. So I always say, it's like, I'm a prime example, because a year ago I was not a published author. And here I am. So, but I sat and I visualized. I sat in my chair and I pictured myself doing it. And that's part of the roadmap. You have to, don't live in the past and don't wish for a future that you want. Visualize the future you want, and then take the steps that need to happen.
So one thing I do want to touch upon, as we keep talking about visualization, for those who aren't someone, there's a lot of people that literally can't close their eyes and see, because you got to remember, like you and I've had this conversation, some people are kinesthetic, some people are auditory, some people are more analytical, blah, 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 the different archetypes, if you will. So if it is someone who has a hard time actually closing their eyes and visualizing what they want the future to be, so what I do with folks like that is, it's a lot of it is getting them to write out, because some of the people are more analytical, write out what you want in your future, in your roadmap. Write out your blueprint, if you will. Because in writing, you're engaging the physiology of your entire body when your hand is moving. Another great way of also incorporating that multi-sensory intake, if you will, for people that can't visualize, is after you have written it out on top of my hand, okay, then to actually read what you wrote to yourself, because in doing that, the inner critic's going to come up. It's very interesting. Then read it out loud, because when you read the content out loud, all sorts of others, ahas, and stuff are going to come up. Then you go back and edit it and take out what you don't want because it didn't sit right with you. Put in your ahas, the things you want to do, right? And then type it. When you type it, it's a whole nother thing, and then you're kind of creating that journey or that blueprint. But it's really fascinating. I think a lot of clients are like, visualize? You can visualize? And they're like, I can't visualize. That's not who I am. So I think, and it is such a valuable tool to visualize. And so I just wanted to tie that in there a little bit for people that are hearing us say visualize, visualize, visualize. And they're like, I don't think so.
Well, and I appreciate that that you brought that up, because part of the tools for success is also the narrative therapy, which is writing it out and creating yourself a mission statement. And there's a lot of little components. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm the kinesthetic one. I do write it out, obviously, because I keep a journal. Well, my journals are pretty much me writing down what I want to happen, you know? And so that's actually my personal choice. I know of a lot of, but I also work with a lot of clients where we're doing visualization, and where it has worked. I had a client that I worked with who went to go see a home that she was considering moving into, and she visualized herself standing in that house, where her furniture would go, what it would be like to live there, what it would be like to walk up the stairs, and things like that. And what ended up happening was she decided, I can't live here, because I knew that what would happen is that I would be walking up and down their stairs so many times I would get annoyed. She wanted a one-story apartment, but the visualization really helped her, and that's how she shared it with me. It's like, I actually visualized myself living here, which was an exercise that she hadn't really ever practiced before. But it is, you're right, it's different different people have different learning styles, and it's important to uncover which one works best for you, because you can say something's not going to work for you. Okay, well, let's just try another method then. Let's find what works, what's going to be working for you. Exactly.
And visualization is a very important tool. And I encourage people who think they're not visual, even if you can't close your eyes, or you can obviously close your eyes. However, you're still having that difficulty of seeing the colors or hearing the sound. It's not your Just,
Mm-hmm.
again, try a different modality, because even if you're closing your eyes and you're even pretending, if you will, like children do with great imaginations, you're still starting to kind of create little pathways, if you will, to learning how to visualize. And then, like you said, the writing is such a key component, journaling, for people that may have a harder time visualizing. So those are all important facets to the path on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's give them some tools and nuggets for actually some of these actual tasks, or not, I don't like that word, actions that people need to take to actually start going on their journey.
Well, one of the things that I think is one of my favorite, and it comes into, it becomes very profound, is to identify your core values. Why are you doing it? Why do you do what you do? What is the core value? And there's an exercise that I discovered. I don't claim that I wrote it. I did not. But an exercise that I discovered, and in fact, my Apple a Day, I did 30 days of core values. So if somebody really wanted to go back, they could go back into the archives of my blogs and look at the October and October blogs. They're all about the core values. 30 days of core values, where we identify 30 different core values that somebody might have. And it might be relationships, it might be wealth, it might be love, it might be spirituality, it might be responsibility. There's a list of things that you might value for yourself. And the exercise goes like this. Identify, out of these 30 core values, identify the top 10 for you, your top 10 core values. Then what? And that takes some time, because you're looking at all these core values, and they're all values, so they're all reasonable. Well, which one are most important to you? All right. Well, then once you get those 10, now we're going to take 5 away. So now out of those 10, pick your top 5. And then the exercise continues until you're down to your number 1 core value. And when I did this exercise for the first time, I was very surprised at what my number 1 core value was. And it was wisdom. And it didn't really shock me, but it was like, of all the things, of love, spirituality, responsibility, relationships, family, all of that, career, financial, of all of those things, mine was wisdom. And time again, I have done this exercise in groups or with individuals, and they're always sort of like, they get this aha. Well, then once you identify your number 1 core value, then the first little nugget that I give them is, then everything that you do should reflect that value. So if it's love, then everything you should do is in love. You were going to say something.
Yes. I have done that exercise that you're talking about. It is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
What you think or what you expect, and that's why I always tell people, throw away expectations, because things never turn out exactly the way you're thinking or expecting. Yeah. And I think, and why I want to tie into this is, once you finally get to what your core values are and you start to live them out and teach those out, you'll start to draw the clientele that has those same core values. Because here's the thing. If your core value, like you said, is wisdom, okay, and you're putting out all this other energy, first of all, it confuses the universe, because you're putting out all this different energy of all these different things. And not only that, the end consumer, or the people out there looking to find someone, are also getting mixed messages and confused. And then you're going to be working with clients that you're going to have issues with, because they're not in alignment with your core values. So we need to get really clear on what our core values are. And once we get clear on our core values, you may, like you said, start with, like, okay, once you get down to your nugget of your main core value, I always look at 2 or 3, the next 2, because those are usually very in tune with the first. Yeah. And then you get very clear in your message. You're get to draw the type of clientele that you want, and you won't start underneath starting to resent them, because they're like, well, wait a minute, you don't want to. You start to not want to work with people that are not in alignment with you, because that just doesn't work. Yeah. So getting really clear on that makes success, your tools for success, a lot easier, because you're going to get clear.
Right. Exactly. And that's why, when I started the Apple a Day, my it's 60 seconds on wisdom, success, and personal growth. I think that says it right there. You know, it's only a minute, so they're bite-sized morsels of wisdom. You know, so you can listen to it or you can read it, your choice, whatever you like. So if you're an auditory listener, you can listen to it and it's my voice. Or if you're a visual learner, you can read it, and it's only going to take you as long as it takes me to say it. So it's basic. It's like, honestly though, sometimes they're a little longer than 60 seconds because I talk a lot, but people get the point. You know, and then the tagline is, now go out and be fruitful. You know, so it's just like, here's your little nugget of wisdom, and wisdom is mine. And it's like once I really started like sharing that it's like wisdom is my core value. And where do you find wisdom? You find it in an apple. You know, you find it in an orchard. You find it in your personal growth. You can find, you find wisdom when you're seeking other things, and that's where you find the wisdom. You know, and that's for me. You know, a lot of other clients, it's like they're really surprised, and it's like, I can tell you this right now. Never, ever, ever have I come across somebody's number one core value is money. Never. It's never even on the top 10. You know, which is really ironic, because everything's that when people think about success, they always think it's financial success. You know, and it's not necessarily always tied to money. And that's really interesting.
So that is very key, because let's get back to that. Okay. So we find out what our core values are, right? What people don't realize is, if you're not living out your core values, you're not going to create the abundance. Funny thing is, once you do live out your core values, the money will arrive as a side effect anyway.
Yeah.
So even though that does not, come up on a lot of people's radar, and then they get really confused. They're like, well, I don't get it. If money isn't on my top 10, then how am I going to create money? Well, the minute you're in alignment with what you want to do, and you're living that purpose and living that passion, and taking those action steps around your core values, the side effect, energetically anyways, is going to be abundance. So don't get all taken out when you're like, well, if it's not on my list, then
I must not. It must not be important to me. There's a difference between something that's important to you and a core value. You know, I mean, it's like, sure, money's important to me, my family is important to me, my health is important to me. Those things are all very important to me, but they're not part of my value system. And that's where the boundary needs to be made. There is that the value is something intrinsic. It's personal. There's a lot of external things that are going to go on around you, which includes your family, which includes your job and your career and your money and your influence on other people. Those are all, like you said, side effects of you living your core value. Yeah. Living
your purpose, living your passion. Now I'm going to go back to, you were saying it may be a little over 60 seconds because I like to talk. Now here's the thing. You and I are both very bubbly, very energetic. We talk with our hands, and we're very kinesthetic people. This is part of the thing that people also need to get. If you are not who you are, you again are going to repel clients. Now look, some people are going to love us, because we love to chat and we're very animated, we have high energy, and some people are not. And we have to be willing as people to be okay with that. We're so enamored with attempting to be everything to everybody, have everybody love us, right? And all these things, that a lot of people aren't who they are. They choose not to be who they are because, oh my God, I need to slow down my speech because I'm going to lose half my audience. Me speaking slow, that's like me slurring. It literally sounds like I'm drunk because my words don't come out correctly. They start to slur because my brain can't process things that slow. And number one, I grew up in South America. My first language was Spanish, right? So you're basically asking me to be something that I'm not. I can't slow my brain down that much to, now I'm starting to try and do it.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to be okay as people to be who we are. You're passionate, you're bubbly, you talk a little bit much, or you talk a little fast. That's just okay, and we're going to draw people that love that energy, that love that excitement. And then other people will be like, whoa, that's way too much for me. I can't handle that, and that's okay.
It is okay, and I've actually had that experience recently in a little small group environment where I was sort of sharing, a little bit about me and and this and that, and of course I'm talking with my hands and I talk fast, like this, and this woman looks over at me and she goes, "Wow, you're really intense," and I was like, Okay, I wouldn't really describe myself as intense, but I'll take that. But honestly, to tell you the truth, it's like now I find myself kind of steering clear of her. And I think we both do because we're not in alignment. But it's okay. It's perfectly okay. I don't expect her. I'm not going to try to win her over. I'm not going to tone down who I am because she found me to be intense. It's just that we're just not a good match, and that's okay. It's perfectly fine.
And so I wanted to bring that up because I know there are people out there that are like us, and I interviewed all types of speakers and authors, and some are like you and I, very bubbly and infectious, and like just have that fiery energy. And there's some that are more really slow, and they speak in more of a monotone approach or whatever. And they're going to get the people that can resonate with that. Yeah. I just want to bring up the factor of not changing, that you're not broken, and that you're bringing you back to that. You don't need to change who you are.
Yeah.
You're more authentic.
Yes.
Back to core values, right? So going back to core values, and then we're going into other aspects of that, which would be being authentic. Authenticity builds trust. Even, also loyalty. I actually did a post the other day about loyalty is actually a bigger core value for some people than trust is, because the reality is from loyalty comes trust. And some people the other way around. I need to build trust first, then I'll get loyalty. The reality is the more loyal you are to yourself, the more authentic you are to yourself, the more loyal you are to your family, your friends, or whatever you're looking, that feed. The trust comes from that, not
right.
around.
Right. Yeah, the authenticity and the loyalty, like you said, loyalty to yourself. That was one of the topic. Obviously, that's one of the core values in my apple a day, was the loyalty to be true to who you are and don't change that. Because a lot of people, in their efforts to get people to like them, they change their direction all the time. They're trying to be all things to all people, and then who's going to trust you? Because you're different today than you were yesterday. And you'll be somebody different tomorrow because you're jumping through all of people's hoops. Stop jumping through hoops. Be loyal to yourself and your core values, and then people will trust you. You're right. Yeah. And
I wanted to add one more thing, that going back to something you said, and which goes back to when your old brand, where you knew you were going to get stuck after a while. There's this whole, I don't know how to put this. People will say, be niched, be niched, be niched. You have to be niched on one thing. You have to understand that, again, it's not everybody. For some people, they may have such a very specific niche that's a very high-end niche or a very specific need. That may be okay for their brand or who they are. Certain people, it's not. It's like, especially if you're the type of person who does any sort of coaching or consulting in a bigger genre, we have to actually know and have studied and practiced and used and just embodied a lot of different facets, especially in coaching and with marriage and that type of counseling. You're not just learning psychology. You're having to know philosophy and psychology and all these different methodologies, philosophy. So to be so niched where you can't grow can actually be an inhibitor to success versus a growth for success. I'm not saying going 20 different directions. I'm not talking about all these directions. I'm saying you have your core principles, your core values, your core brand, your core who you are, and your authenticity. Then make sure that you have enough that can provide value. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I can use an example as how my career path has gone. It's like before I was a licensed marriage and family therapist, before I was an author, before I was a coach, I was a radio broadcaster. So here's the thing, is that I spent 15, 16 years owning and operating radio stations, then another 10 or 15 years being a consultant in FCC compliance. And this all occurred before I suffered from the heart problem and made a drastic shift in my career path. But now what's happening is, like, here I am really deep into it, and I still have my roots firmly planted in broadcast. And what I've done is I've brought my mental health experiences and education to the broadcast world, and now I'm doing recruiting for finding the right people for jobs. I write articles on stress in the workplace in radio stations. And I'm doing my Apple a Day as an audio blog, utilizing my radio announcing skills and my mental health abilities to create these daily blogs. So the point is that don't get yourself, just because someone says you need to have a niche, don't make it like an anchor or pigeonhole you into something that where you don't have room to grow anymore. Because I continuously grow with what I'm doing, and then when I find out that something's not working, guess what? I'm not afraid to prune it back or weed it out because it's no longer working for me. And I just keep pruning and growing and pruning and growing and letting new ideas, blossom. And listen to all these metaphors that I'm bringing up, and it's not on purpose. It's just happening. But as an example, like you said, it's like, yes, find yourself a niche, but don't let it, bury you. Exactly. Yeah.
I brought that up, especially with the two of us, because we tend to be, like I said, and I have nothing against people that are more, kinesthetic in a different way, very monotone or whatever, analytical, whatever. It's just that because people like us that are very passionate, very energetic, we tend to have, I don't know, I can't explain it, but it's kind of like the muse energy, right? And I see a lot of clients when the people that are like us, and they want to pigeonhole because everyone's telling them, no, you can't be all that. You can't be good at all that. You need to pick one thing. It's like, don't take yourself out and trying to mold yourself into this one thing.
Absolutely.
Who you are, and take all your talents and your education and your life lessons. And
and I've read stuff on it's like the new career path is to diversify. It's like more and more people are outsourcing jobs. And you really need to be diversified in your business, in your core business, and in your career to be able to do different things, because you can't count on that corporate lifestyle anymore being able to sustain you for your entire career, and then you get to retire with the golden parachute. Those days are gone with the way the economy is and with the way that business in general is going. So when we're talking about business and professional success, you've got to diversify. So when someone says create yourself a niche, you're almost pigeonholing people into failure when you can't break out and do something different. And also, it's like, who would want to put a stifle on their creativity? It's like, I know somebody who's like, they're in finance, but they love to be creative in other areas, but they're not really sure how to balance that. So I'm trying to help them work on diversifying. So it's like, okay, so finance, mortgages, real estate. Well, how about you do that? And it's like, but you also are creative and you like working with your hands. Well, why don't you flip houses? And so you still have this, but then you're flipping houses, but you're actually doing the physical work because you enjoy it. And so there's a way to diversify the creativity and the skills without being completely just, well, this is all I know, so this is all I get to do.
And what you brought up there, which is really important, is when we don't live our passion, first of all, people can feel it. Part of our soul dies. And like I said, the undercurrent, unconscious is starting to get resentful and angry, and you take yourself out and your business starts to die. The one that you're good at literally starts to die in some way. So you have to make sure that, going back to authenticity and being true to yourself, that whatever your passion is, that somehow you incorporate that in, with your values into the business that you're doing. So like you said, having that person that does, finances and mortgages and all that, finding a way to use that creative outlet. So they're feeding their soul and they're living their passion and making sure they're nurturing that aspect of themselves. You have to nurture the aspects of yourself that bring you joy, and usually behind that is something you're really passionate about. So you got to make sure when you're doing your core values and you're looking at what you want to do for business, or people are in fear and living their 9 to 5, right? So they won't look at that other aspect. Well, maybe while you're doing your 9 to 5, you start working on that passion and putting together a journey, or for the outcome of being able to do on the side, and for that person who's afraid to take the leap, right? To start working that passion, and once they see how that passion is going, they'll have less and less fear about letting go of their whether it is a 9 to 5 or whatever.
Right. And another thing I want to point out as we're talking about tools for success is that things that you and I do, we help our clients put tools in their toolbox. But your toolbox is never full. There's always a new tool that you can add to it. And never put a timeline on or a deadline on your dreams, because they'll change. They will adapt, and things take time. It's like everything that we do, that you have to give it the proper amount of time to grow, and nothing grows at the same pace. So it's important to, while you're visualizing what you want your life to look like, be living that life today as if you're already there, and you will get there. I don't know how long it's going to take. There's no magic pill. There's no magic formula. You just got to use the tools, and you've got to learn them, and you've got to keep using them. And if it no longer works for you, get a new tool and just keep going.
And that's exactly what you and I do. And in my wording on my site, I'm saying I help clients build their toolbox. And we may have 3 different toolboxes, one for family, one for business, and one for self. And there's always a plethora of tools.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to attempt to use different tools, because, like you said, you got to weed out, you got to find out what's working and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
So tools from everybody. And you and I, we're constantly learning. We don't know it all. And I do not want to know it all, because it's kind of like, we can't know it all. We're always going to learn something new. So we are obviously always expanding tools for clients. And that's why I do these shows. That's why I'm always interviewing different people. It's like, A, I don't know it all. And 2, my clients and everyone else out there can hear other people's perspectives and views. Because everyone's views aren't the same as mine. Everyone's perspectives aren't the same as mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so giving them other tools for their toolbox beyond.
Well, I find that I learn from my clients all the time. It's like I love the clients that have a different background than I have, because I learned something from them. And so you're right. It's like, I don't know all the answers. I'm the first to say, fill me up. Tell me about you, because by me learning about you, that's the only way that I'm going to be able to help you find the right tool for you, for what you need. I mean, my gosh, it's like, we can't, you open up the hood of a car, and if you don't have a wrench, you're not going to be able to fix that car. But it might not be a wrench that you need. It might just need to have its oil changed. So if you don't have the oil, you're not going to be able to put the oil in it. And that's kind of the point of having tools in your toolbox, is that you need many, because until you're looking under the hood, you don't know what the problems are. And so I'm always learning from people all the time. I learn from you all the time. I learn from, I had 3 conversations today that I learned something new that I didn't already know. And that's the beauty of it. It's a constant growth process for all of us.
Exactly. And that's why I was telling everybody all the time, it's so key. And when people are afraid to share, it's kind of like, you never know who's out there waiting to hear exactly what you have to say. So never think what you have to share or have to teach isn't important. Because if you don't share it, all of us can't learn. We're all learning from each other. It's just a natural process. So
I think that was one of my biggest fears when I first got started. When I wanted to be a writer and an author, that was one of them. Was like, who's going to care what I have to say? I'm just little old Kelly Orchard. Who am I to have anything important for anybody to want to know? And I had to get over that fear, because somebody like you told me, somebody out there needs to hear what you have to say. And it might only be one person, but wouldn't it be worth it? And yes, it was.
Adding to that, what you just said, the ripple effect. Everyone's so focused on the word pay it forward or the next action. Realize the action that you do, it's the ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
Putting out that book, even if it was just that one person who read it, that person's going to go on to tell someone else, hey, you know what I learned from reading Kelly's book? I had this major aha. And then that person's going to go on to tell someone else. Mm-hmm. Always look at the fact that no matter what you're doing in the moment, don't focus on just that, how can I put this? Don't necessarily focus on the act. In other words, in your mind you're going, who am I? I'm only one person. What can I do? What can I accomplish? Realize that it doesn't matter that you're just one person. There is going to be a very impactful ripple effect. And that goes both ways. So we have to be mindful of what we're putting out there, because there is that ripple, whether it be negative or positive. So that's huge.
Yes, absolutely. It is. Yeah.
So as usual, you and I could talk for a very long time about a
I know.
plethora of things. So what are some last nuggets you'd like to leave for the audience? And I'd also like for you, since this is also a podcast, not just a video, to verbally tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, it's really easy. You can find me at kellyorchard.com. And I always tell people when anybody wants to know how to spell my name, it's like orchard, like the fruit trees. You know, you can't get it wrong. I would love to, to have your audience subscribe to Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. When you go to my website, you can just subscribe right there. And when you subscribe, I send you a free copy of my book in ebook format. So you'll get the download within an hour after subscribing to my Apple a Day. And then in your inbox, every morning you'll get Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, and it's 60 seconds on wisdom, success, and personal growth. And it always has little nuggets of information. We've done 30 days of core values, 30 days of habits, 30 days of gratitude. I try to put them into little 30-day increments, and then we change the subject. And it's a lot of fun. Coming up real soon in the springtime, I'll be launching my Seasons of Growth Tools for Success program. It'll be available digitally, so you don't even have to go anywhere. And it's going to be very valuable, and just it's going to fill your toolbox with a lot of methods that you can utilize and implement, and it'll have lectures along with it so that you'll be able to learn and continue to listen to them over and over and over again if you need to. But if I was to give a little bit of nugget of information, I would encourage you to visualize your success in any way that you see fit, whether you write it down or you sit and you meditate or you go jog around the block and it fills your lungs with air, but visualize where you want to see, where you see yourself and where you want to be. And then find a coach or a therapist that you trust and that has the same core value system as you do, because that's who you're going to resonate with. And make sure that you follow that path, because growth is the ultimate purpose of our lives. We are here to grow. Every single life force is here to grow.
Another thing I'd love to tie back to, because this is a really key, important one, there's so much of a stigma with seeing a therapist. I think everyone needs to understand that in this new genre and new entrepreneurism that's out there, and like you said, the economy and all these other things, insurance, no insurance, being a therapist has evolved a lot. There's so many therapists like you that aren't just your typical therapists. It's more than just therapy. There really is this kind of relationship that you form with someone as a client, and it's more coaching. You know, a lot of people hear the word therapist and they like, oh my God, they cringe. No, I don't want to see a therapist. Therapy and therapists, and I'm not saying all of them are like this, has really expanded and grown to being more more consulting than the typical, go in for the hour, watch the clock. Oh my God, so your 15-minute little buttons, coming up. You get what I'm saying? So, and I really appreciate you, because you are one of those atypical type of therapists, right? You're not just a therapist. You're a coach. You're a consultant. And I think that brings a more warm, fuzzy, feeling, instead of the typical going into an office, close the door, and the person's looking at the clock, telling, oh, you got type of thing, and then it's like, boom, you're gone, right? So I think it's such an important thing for people to understand, that therapy and coaching and consulting, all these things have truly evolved. So don't be afraid to seek out a consultant, a coach, a therapist. If that's something that you truly need in your life, there's nothing wrong with either of those. And just realize, again, you're going to resonate with someone that is doing therapy, if you will, at kind of your style or your comfort level. You're just going to resonate with that person because they maybe aren't the typical therapist. Now, some people want to make sure that person has a therapy degree and they're exactly that, because they don't think they'll get anything out of it if it's not, right? So there's that kind of just a lot of diversities these days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just really important for you to find somebody that you can resonate with, but also is going to do you some good and not harm. And I always have to like really express that, is that I personally am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. I am not licensed to practice therapy anywhere outside of California. So I have to be very careful with who I will do coaching or therapy with. But coaching and therapy are not the same thing. But having a mental health professional, somebody who is skilled to identify certain personality or issues or mental health concerns, then can refer you to going and seeing a psychotherapist. And it's really important for people to understand that they are different, even though they're complementary. Yeah.
And yes, you brought up an extremely valid point, is we always have to put out those liabilities that, yes, if you're licensed in one state, that's the only place you can practice. However, if you need me for other services, I'm there for that. And if you definitely need counseling or psychiatric in that genre, in that form, that we have the network to refer you to someone who can help you.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So once again, it's been absolutely delightful having you. I look forward to more conversations and look forward to your new program coming out. And thank you so much for joining me.
Carly, as always, it's a pleasure and an honor to know you. And I appreciate you having me back on your show again, and I hope we'll be able to do this again soon. Yeah.
I know we will. I look forward to your new book coming out and your new program.
Thank you
so much. As always, you've been with your host, Carly Alyssa Thorne, and you can find me at my name, CarlyAlyssaThorne.com. And I will have a podcast and a video format all in one blog with all of Kelly's information and any link you possibly need. And I enjoy reaching out to you and bringing you valuable content. Enjoy, everybody. Have a beautiful day.